So if you are ready to revolutionize the way you learn and master even the most complex subjects with ease, then in this video, I'm going to show you how you can use the power of the Feynman technique supercharged with Bevinzey's AI technology and unlock your full learning potential. So if you want to know how, then let's get right to it. So the first thing we want to know is what exactly is the Feynman technique. So the Feynman technique is a learning method which was developed by the legendary Nobel Prize winning physicist Richard Feynman, and Feynman was actually known for his ability to explain really complex concepts in simple terms, making it so accessible to a really wide audience. So the Feynman technique actually consists of 4 steps, and the first step in there is to actually choose a concept that you want to learn or you want to master. And so you start by identifying the topic or concept you really want to understand better, and then subsequently you're going to break it down into smaller, manageable parts if necessary. So let me show you how you can quickly use Bevinzey to accelerate that process. At this point, you want to study the laws of supply and demand. That's just a random topic I picked. So we can put in a prompt in the chat Bevinzey. And then we'll just let the AI do its thing. So here we have an excellent write-up. It tells you what the law of demand is. It tells you some implications or the relationships. It tells you the law of supply. Now, I'm not an economist, but we are going to study this together at high speed using Bevinzey. So the first thing we want to do is we want to be able to break this down into smaller, manageable parts. And an excellent way will be to first have a high-level summary. So I'm just going to copy, just double-click. And then we're going to go to the summarize text to key points, and we're going to paste it in here. And actually for this AI tool, you really don't need to put in a prompt. You just click generate and it's going to summarize that for you. And so here we have a high level summary that gives us some of the key points, and we can read it in the text box, or better still, let's export this as a PDF. So now you can add this to your learning repository, or just have an easier way to visualize what is going on. So the laws of supply and demand are important principles in economics that determine the prices and quantities of goods and services in the marketplace. The law of demand states that as the price of goods or services go up, the demand goes down. And the law of supply states that as the price of the product goes up, the quantity supplied by producers also goes up. And the point where the supply and demand intersect is called equilibrium, and this is where the market clearing price is determined. So both demand and supply curves can shift due to various factors, leading to a new equilibrium price and quantity. Overall, these laws provide the basic model for understanding how prices are determined and how markets function. Excellent. So I got the point now, and if you were studying this, I'm sure you got the point as well. Alright, so we just went through the first step in the Feynman technique. We picked the topic, the laws of supply and demand. We had the information that we wanted to study and master, and then we summarized it to give us a high-level overview, breaking it down into more manageable components. And now we're going to look at the second step in the Feynman technique. So the second step is to explain the concept in very simple terms. And what you want to do here is you want to assume or take the mindset that you're actually teaching the concept to someone else, perhaps like a 5-year-old cousin, like a child, somebody who would not really understand all the complicated technical jargon. So you're going to avoid using jargons or technical terms, just explain it in simple language. And what happens is if you find yourself struggling to explain the concept clearly, then it's an indication that you need to go back and review the material. Now, one way you can really accelerate this process is to use some of the AI tools in Bevinzey, and I'm just going to show you what that would look like. So there are a number of ways you can approach this. I'm just going to start off with a summary. I'm going to just copy the summary and go back to the Bevinzey chart. And even before actually using the summary, what we can do is simply extend the conversation in the chat. We're going to say explain the concept of the laws of supply and demand using simple language. Assume I am teaching the concept to a 5-year-old child. Avoid technical terms and jargons. So just going to use this prompt, and the AI is going to do its thing and give us a way to really break it down even further. So it gave us a response, and here it says, imagine you're at the playground and you have a box of cookies. If many of your friends want your cookies and you only have a few, you might decide to only give them to your very best friends. That's because the cookies are in high demand and short supply. Now, if you had lots of cookies and no one really wants them, you might start offering them to anyone nearby, even kids you really don't know. That's because the cookies are in high supply and low demand. Now, this is exactly how the laws of supply and demand work. When something is rare and many people want it, they're often willing to give up more to get it. This makes its price go up. But when there's a lot of something that not many people want, the share or price usually goes down. So in the real world, things like toys, vegetables, houses, and many other things follow those rules as well. Supply, how much there is, and demand, how much people want it, helps decide their price. All right, so this is really a nice way to explain it. No jargons, no technical terms, and you are reinforcing the concept. So this is something that at least a 5-year-old child would understand. And this is also another way to reinforce the concept in our own minds. Now you can repeat the process, but I don't want this video to get too long. So we're going to go with this explanation. But like I said, you can go back and forth with the AI tool to even get a more simpler way to explain the concept. So just to bring us all back to the same page, we are at the second step of the Feynman technique. In the first step, we actually selected the concept, which was the laws of supply and demand. The second step requires us to be able to explain the concept in simple terms, as if you're teaching someone, preferably if you're teaching a child. So we just did that. And now let's look at what the third step in the Feynman technique actually is. And so the third step in the Feynman technique is to identify any gaps in your understanding. And if there are gaps, what you want to do is you actually want to go back to the source material. So as you explain the concept, you may realize that it's not really clear in your mind because you're struggling with the words. And even though you've used Bevinzey to accelerate the process, it should be much more clearer than if you're doing it without any assistance. But then the one way you could also check your understanding is to use the other tools in there using the testing technique. And I'm just going to demonstrate how that will work. So what we can do is use the testing technique to see if there are any gaps in our understanding. I'm just going to copy this, just double click and then go back in here. And we're going to do the test to questions. So I'm going to paste it in here. And also here, you don't need any prompt, but let's do multiple choice. Let's do 10 questions. It's fairly short, but let's see whether I can still find 10 questions. We pick multiple choice. Click generate. And so there you have it. You have 10 multiple choice questions. You have the question and then the distractors. And if you want to see the answers, just click on the eye icon. So one way we can actually make this a useful resource is to be able to have access to this at a future date. So you can download as a text, PDF, or a Word document. I'm just going to download as a PDF. And these will be the questions without the answers. And then we'll download the questions with the answers so we can check it later on. So just going to export this. And now we're going to click on the eye icon to have the answers beneath each of the questions. And I'm also going to export that as a PDF. And so now I'm going to bring in the questions. And by going through the question, it's going to help us know whether there are any gaps that are in the understanding. And then we would need to go back to the material, just following what the Feynman technique says. So the Feynman technique in and of itself is really powerful, but when you combine that with the AI tools, it accelerates the process and makes it very dynamic in nature. So this question is, what is the income effect in relation to the law of demand? Okay, so this piece I didn't pay close attention to, so that's a gap. So if I go through all the questions, I'm just going through them 4, 5, let's see. Yeah, so they're really good questions here, and I don't know how your friend on your side, but I can notice some gaps in my understanding for a few of the questions. But not to make this video too long, what we're going to do is we're going to pull in the answers. We can actually take this a step further if we wanted to really go a little bit deeper using the other types or formats of questions. And let's just try the higher order thinking. We will still do 10. Let's see whether we can get 10 questions. Click generate. Yes, so with the higher order thinking question, it can help you even identify more gaps in your knowledge, because these are ones that involve the higher order thinking domains, more critical analysis. So once again, these are something we can export as a PDF. Let's just do that. And I just added the answers to it. I'm going to export that as well. So if you're following along, these are questions you should be able to answer. If not, those are gaps within the understanding, and you want to go back and visit the source material, and then we can pull in the questions and the answers itself. So as you notice, you're also developing your learning or study material as you go along using the tools, because you can simply export this and this becomes something you can reference later on. Yeah, so you have the question, you have the answer, and all of this is helping you understand the gaps, and then you're going back to the material to actually reinforce your understanding. So let's just go back to the material. This was under the chart. We were in this chart. So here's all the good stuff. This is what we're trying to master. So just so you know, the text to questions is picking information directly from what you paste into the question text box. So it's based on how the material is presented. That's what's actually examining you on. But as you can tell, it really speeds up the process, because now you have multiple ways of getting the questions in a very high speed manner using the AI tools in Bevinzey, and then you can use that as a way to really reinforce your understanding, or at least let you know where the gaps are in your understanding. Now let's move on to the fourth step in the Feynman technique. So now the fourth step is to simplify your explanations, and even if possible, create analogies. So once you've identified the gaps, you've gone back to your source material and you filled in the gaps in your understanding, now you try to simplify the explanations even further. So a very nice way is to use analogies, because that helps you connect what you know to what already exists in the understanding that you have or everyday experiences of people. So let's go back to the Bevinzey AI tools to see how you can use them to enhance the fourth step in the Feynman technique. So here I'm going to put in another prompt in the chat Bevinzey that will help us actually implement step 4 in the Feynman technique. So I want you to explain in much simpler terms the laws of supply and demand. I want you to create analogies and use real world examples to make the concept more relatable and easier to grasp. So that's a pretty good prompt. And so here in a few seconds, it gave us even more simplified explanation and with some analogies. So you think about your favorite toy store. Let's consider that super cool toy car everyone is talking about, Speedinator. And it talks about the law of demand. It says, imagine if the price of the Speedinator suddenly doubled from $10 to $20. then you and your friends might start thinking it's too expensive and decide not to buy it. This means that less people will want the toy, or in other words, the demand has decreased because of the higher price. That's like choosing not to buy an ice cream if the ice cream seller increased the price from $1 to $3, right? So that's the law of demand, and it talks about the law of supply. Gives another example and talks about the interaction of supply and demand using analogies. So what will happen if you raise your toys price too high, say to $30? Probably fewer kids will want to buy it because it's too expensive. Demand decreases. You would be left with many unsold toys, too much supply. So you have to lower the price to make sure you sell all your toys. So this is wonderful, right? This is an excellent way to really juice up or speed up your learning process using the AI tools in Bevinzey together with the Feynman Technique. So there you have it. The Feynman Technique is effective because it forces you to engage actively with the material and test your understanding. And so by explaining the concept in your own words, you'll identify areas where your knowledge is shaky and work to reinforce your learning. And additionally, the process of simplifying complex ideas and creating analogies helps you develop a deeper, more intuitive understanding of the subject matter. And so incorporating the Feynman technique into your learning routine can help you tackle even the most challenging subjects with confidence. And with tools like Bevinzey, which leverage AI technology to support the principles of the Feynman technique, you'll be well on your way to mastering complex topics in no time. So if you have any questions about using artificial intelligence for learning or teaching, or just generative AI training for institutions, or you have questions about Bevinzey in general, just contact us at the phone number 1-800-242-3110, or just go to our website bevinzey.com, or send us an email at info@bevinzey.com. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to like the video and share it. And if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments and I'll get to them as soon as I see them. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.